My mother was a union steward in a Chicago canning factory in the 50s and hollered against Jim Crow on sound trucks. She sang us ballads and spirituals like Swing Low, Sweet Chariot and All God's Children Got Shoes. I Gave My Love a Cherry was her favorite lullaby. She took us along to bring hot coffee to strikers on the picket line in the winter and to a civil rights march in New Jersey in 1965. She volunteered at Head Start. Into her 70s, she was driving into Beethoven School near the Robert Taylor homes to tutor disadvantaged children. She contracted progressive supranuclear palsy, and for the last year of her life was unable to walk or speak. I moved back in with my folks and took a shift at night so my father could go upstairs and think. I sang her a lot of the songs I wrote in my teens. When hospice told us it was the end, my brother and sister flew in. That evening, my sister Ellen asked me to sing Mother I Climbed by Dave Carter. So I poured myself a shot of Bowmore and sat on the commode, the only available chair, and sang for 6 hours. My mother's favorite songs of mine, songs Matthew and Ellen asked for that I didn't think I still knew. Then it was songs we could all sing to her that she had sung to us. I Gave My Love a Cherry, Swing Low, All God's Children Got Shoes. My mother had loved to walk, and Ted and I would help her up and back on Cumner Avenue until she couldn't shuffle her feet any longer. When I get to heaven, I'm going to put on my shoes. I'm going to walk all over God's heaven. I always thought that was a cool song, but this passing is what the song was for. In that moment, I had a palpable sense of people out there who were wiser about death than we, who were neither defiant nor afraid, but embraced this passage as an adventure. What was heaven but the sky? And what more beautiful heaven could we imagine? During that week, I talked more with my brother about the spirituals and began ordering books, eventually stumbling onto Slave Songs of the United States, published in 1867. That summer, out on Matinicus Island, my caregiving father allowed himself to catch a cold for the first time in 6 years. I brought him cups of peppermint tea and started sounding out some of the songs. They blew our minds, 135 songs of which I'd only ever heard 4. I ordered more collections, Lomax's Deep River of Song and Southern Journey recordings. After several months, the light bulb went on. What I loved in the spirituals was the West African religious sensibility. Google, bingo. The 10,000-year-old Vodou religion has strong parallels with Lakota spirituality. There are the ancestors and the 4 directions, the communal support for transcendent experience, for which our society offers almost nothing. I read up on my history for a year, determined to make a recording to revive some of this material. I met the great Gullah painter, Jonathan Green, in Naples, Florida, who let me use one of his paintings on the cover. Slavery was war, he said to me. He hooked me up with the Avery Research Center in Charleston, and I saw the Gullah singers perform a ring shout. I met a singer in Charleston, Ann Caldwell, who had taken a gospel group to Europe. The European venues complained that her group of 5 singers included 2 white singers. My white liberal folk singer friends warned me repeatedly about making the recording. They said, "They'll say, why is a white guy playing our music?" As if somehow I was violating something by learning songs by brother and sister poets from old books. No one had ever complained that I play Bach on the guitar without having German ancestry. It took some searching, but I found some black singers and musicians, and mixed in with some white ones, we made friends and an album called Bound to Go together. And nobody ever said, "Why are you singing our songs?" Our folk genre is as segregated as an Alabama bus station in 1957. The very few blacks in folk music tend to play in folk bands with other blacks. But all of this music we play was created together by traceable personal interaction. Back in the 20s, Jimmy Rogers learned a lot of music from black railway workers who worked for his dad, mixed in some yodeling with the Blue Notes, and became a recording star. A.P. Carter went on collecting trips with his African-American friend Leslie Riddle, collecting songs from white and black families in the South. These are the roots of country music. A.P. Carter copyrighted these songs. Hank Williams said he learned everything he knew about music from Rufus Payne, alias T-Tot, a street musician in Birmingham, Alabama. The roots of country music are white and black. Bill Monroe created his high, lonesome vocal sound from imitating the field hollers of African-American farmhands. He was mentored by Arnold Schultz, a legendary black musician who was never recorded. Schultz also coached a group of Kentucky guitarists in his amazing style, one of whom was Merle Travis. A fourth of the sailors on American whaling ships were the free blacks of the North, preferred as shanty singers over the Irish. Those rock and call and response work shanties also were created by the dynamic interaction of cultures. What I'm saying is people used to play music together 100 years ago, more than they do now. Does this bother anybody but me? I've been playing for all white audiences for my entire career in the folk genre. Something is wrong. A racist recording industry segregated blacks and whites by genre. It is a tragedy that we've let this pass in silence. I am here to tell you that it is not so hard to befriend and include black, Hispanic, any other musicians in your life. You can start by saying hello. If you love Pete Seeger, don't just look up to him. Follow his example. Be inclusive. Reach out. When Bound to Go was finished, I felt for the first time as if I'd finished a real chunk of my life's work. I wondered what was still going on with this story, and I looked up the prison system. When I wrote my first song, there were 200,000 Americans in prison. Due to the war on drugs, there are now 2.3 million Americans in prison, more than half being African Americans incarcerated for nonviolent offenses. Poor Latinos make up the next largest percentage. The U.S. now incarcerates more people than Russia and China combined. This is not about drugs. This is about cheap labor in the land of the free. 110 factories in the federal system alone are operating 24 hours a day, paying wages of 15 to 23 cents an hour. Prisoners take apart biohazard computers without health regulations. Prisoners make the cheap cherrywood filing cabinets we buy at Office Depot, replacing union jobs. Convicted felons cannot find employment on the outside. 7% of African Americans are disenfranchised from the vote, as compared to 1.8% of the rest of the population. Illegal drug use is at 13% across the board, but blacks are arrested and sentenced at a rate of 70%. Those communities are farmed. Minority communities in the city, when they need more cheap labor, they go and arrest people for small amounts of drug possession. These people are lobbying politicians for longer mandatory sentences for drug possession. The Corrections Corporation, based in Nashville, recently offered to buy up all the state prisons if they would be guaranteed 90% occupancy. Our minority poor are viewed as a harvest crop. California now spends more on prisons than higher education. This is Mordor, a slave state operating under our noses, and they are counting on the fact that people with a voice will not speak out, will not raise hell, do not give a damn. On the centennial of Woody Guthrie's birth, let's not fall into nostalgia and forget what the job is. Let's not make a statue of Dr. King and give up on the dream. The problem is bigger than me and you, but it is not bigger than us. Remember why we sing. Thank you.